The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Hello, folks, and welcome to the Friday Bonus Show. I'm your humble host, producer Pat, and I was thinking about it. We're going to have 3 consecutive Wednesdays for the history books because 2 Wednesdays ago we had the Trump insurrection at the Capitol. Last Wednesday we had the impeachment of Trump, and then next Wednesday we are going to have the inauguration of Joe Biden. So it really is quite a time to be following politics right now, and I want to talk about what Joe Biden plans to do during his first 100 days in office. A brief note on impeachment. I think because Trump cannot be removed by the Senate before his term expires, it would make sense at this point to wait until Joe Biden finishes his first 100 days in office, because that will give the impression of a clean slate. It will make it so that the Biden presidency isn't overshadowed by the Trump presidency, even when the Trump presidency is over. And, especially now, we're dealing with the crisis in coronavirus, 4,000 people dying a day from it, all the economic fallout it has had. So let's talk about Biden's first 100 days. He plans to start out his presidency by introducing a $1.9 trillion spending plan to fight coronavirus and the economic devastation. It's called the American Rescue Plan. And if you made a tree graph for this, it would have 3 major branches. So the first one would be about direct aid to families. There's going to be $1 trillion directed to that. There's also going to be a second branch where you have $400 billion directed towards businesses and communities that have been hurt by the virus. And then a third and final branch for fighting COVID with vaccines and testing, and that will also be $400 billion. So in that first branch, that first trillion, most of that consists of the direct stimulus payments to families. Of course, we won those 2 seats in Georgia with the promise that we would up those stimulus checks from $600 to $2,000. That is indeed what's going to happen. Biden is going to push to issue $1,400 checks to individuals making under $75,000 a year, making the total between the last bill and this one $2,000. And there are certainly voices calling for more. There are some people saying that Biden should pass a flat $2,000. There are some who are saying that we should have UBI, at least temporarily. And it's good that people are fighting for that and calling for that, because you can sort of push the debate in your direction. But this is what we could reasonably expect from a Biden proposal. There's no surprises here. I think the $1,400 is what was promised to couple with the $600 and be $2,000 for people. Also, this Biden proposal will push for an increase in unemployment benefits under the current stimulus package that passed in December. There was boosted unemployment going up to $300 in weekly federal unemployment benefits, and Biden's plan will push that up to $400 a week, and it will also expand it to contractors and freelance people who wouldn't normally qualify. Biden is also proposing $15 billion in grants to help hard-hit small businesses. His plan calls on Congress to provide $350 billion for funding for states and local governments, because, of course, they can't just print money like the federal government can. On housing, the president-elect's plan calls for ending the eviction and foreclosure moratoriums through September. Extending the eviction and foreclosure moratoriums, that's a key difference, through September, and directing $30 billion towards rental assistance. This bill would also, this is a big one, it would push to increase the minimum wage to $15 an hour. And that would be awesome if that could happen, but it sounds to me like it's just an opening bid. I mean, this entire proposal is just a proposal. It'll have to go through the House and the Senate. Democrats and Republicans will have to debate on this, and we'll see what we end up getting. And I feel like this could be the type of thing that's just used as a bargaining chip, that Democrats will surrender right away, like we'll try to push the $15 minimum wage thing later. I hope I'm wrong on that, but we'll see if that actually gets done. And then finally, to go back to the branch analogy I was doing before, under the fighting COVID branch, we have $20 billion for vaccine distribution. Let's hope that's enough, because we know about the disaster that has been getting vaccines in people's arms over the past few weeks. It has not been going all that well. We're way behind schedule. $50 billion for testing, which is good, and $30 billion for PPE. Now, like I said, nothing about this is final. The omnibus bill that passed in December was very bipartisan. Democrats and Republicans, by and large, voted for it. But the thing with that one, that last spending bill, was that it was partly funding the government and partly coronavirus stimulus. And when Democrats and Republicans can sort of come together on a bill to fund the government at the end of the day, usually it passes with overwhelming support because leadership in both sides will agree to it. This time, I don't know if it's going to be as bipartisan, because I think there are going to be a lot of Republicans who say, hey, we just passed a stimulus bill a month ago, we don't need another one. And they could be a headache, especially if Joe Manchin decides to defect from the Democrats because he's expressed some opposition to the $2,000 check. So we'll just have to wait and see. It's just an opening offer. But it's good to see that this is the first agenda item for Joe Biden and the Democrats now that they have control, because this is the crisis that we're facing right now. It obviously needs our concern. So it's no doubt a tense time in American politics right now. We're still finding out more and more about the Capitol insurrection last week and some different side stories stemming from it, and this is one of them. So in the days after the attack, we learned that Trump supporters went to the D.C. airport to fly home to wherever they're from, and there are these videos out there of some people who are at the Capitol riots getting arrested at the airport, getting kicked off of planes, being told that they're put on the no-fly list, and a lot of glorious footage out there. There was also this video of a Congressman, Lou Correa of California, being accosted and threatened by Trump supporters at the airport, and I think he just handled it really quite well because he stands up for himself, he fights back, and an argument ensues. But it's also really just crazy to see, because you get to hear the arguments made by these Trump supporters, and it's also strange how they were able to recognize Correa, because he's not really a prominent figure. He's not like one of the more notable people in Congress, and he said during an interview that he was shocked that they recognized him and somehow knew who he was. But let me play some of the clip for you, and then we will discuss.
Yeah. How are you? Hey, does China fund you? To invade the capital of the United States? No, nobody
coordinated the whole thing going into the Capitol. Go ask them. Yeah, the police let Antifa in. They opened the doors.
Your lie.
And they walked in.
Hey, your lie has been exposed. Your lie has been exposed. Your lie has been exposed. You're a liar. You're people. No, it's not a democracy. This is a republic. This is a republic. This is a republic. No, this is a republic. We the people, not you the elitists. We the people.
Democracy.
You fill your money with our money? You fill your pockets?
I work for my constituents, boss.
Who are you? Literally got no spine.
Who are you?
Who are you looking at me?
I'm me, motherfucker.
And I'm me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's get home.
Yeah. Nobody here voted for you. We don't want you.
That's okay.
We don't want
That's
you.
okay. We don't work for you. Why are you ashamed of who voted for you?
A lot of people. 70% of people in my district.
What city?
Dominion.
Did they use Dominion?
What city?
The best one.
Did they use Dominion?
And you will never get elected.
So I have a few different observations from this video here. Number one, I mean, this is not really a good sign of how things are in the country right now. We certainly are divided, but the fact that this is the type of thing that Trump supporters are getting riled up about, just seeing a Democratic congressperson in an airport, that alone should not be any reason to accost anyone. It's pretty crazy, especially doing so in the way that they did over the issue that they chose to accost the person over. Number two, Congressman Correa really holds his own there. Like, that's pretty commendable. It's not easy to do. He said that he had adrenaline still running through his veins because this was shortly after the coup attempt at the Capitol. But still, it's not easy to do something like that. So it's good for him. Good for him. Another observation I wanted to make was that the Trump people were saying things like, "You don't represent us." Well, he doesn't. Yeah, I mean, he's from a district that you probably don't live in. He's a congressperson from California. Maybe, I know they are at an airport, maybe they're at the gate together, so they are all going to the same place. But chances are those people are from all over the country, and he doesn't actually directly represent them. So it's pretty dumb to say you don't represent us when he's actually quite literally a congressperson from a different district than you. And as he points out, 70% of the people in his district vote for him and approve of him, and he gets reelected every 2 years. So that's another dumb thing to say. Another observation, one of these Trump supporters keeps repeating, "We're not a democracy, or we're a republic," which is, technically correct in the sense that we are a constitutional republic, but we also have elements of democracy in our society as well. Of course, we elect leaders to the chagrin of Trump supporters who want Trump just installed as a dictator. We do have free and fair elections in this country, and we are a democracy in that sense. We also have things like ballot initiatives at the state level. So we're a republic, we're a democracy, we're a lot of different things. Another observation, these Trump supporters, they need to put on their masks, especially when you're yelling at an airport. You know, the airport requires you by law to have your mask on. You're breaking that law also. These people could have been at the riot on the inside of the Capitol, so maybe, you know, they'll just add that to their rap sheet. But, you know, you're yelling at people, you're having these arguments, you're projecting coronavirus into the air, you're putting people's lives at risk. Put your mask on. Maybe they just don't think that they look tough if they have the mask on while they're making their arguments. But, you know, even a bandana, you can look tough with a bandana on, right? And then finally, that big Trump supporter who like really gets in the face of this congressperson. A couple observations about him. For one, is that his actual voice, or is he putting that on? He sounds like a supervillain. Like, that could just be his actual voice, or maybe that's a put on so he sounds more intimidating. But it didn't fool the congressperson, or at least it didn't intimidate him. And another observation about him, I loved that exchange of, "Who are you, MFer?" And then, you know, the congressperson is like, "Oh yeah, who are you?" And then the Trump supporter goes, "I'm me." And the congressperson goes, "Oh yeah, well, I'm me too." And then, I don't know, the Trump supporting guy just didn't know how to respond after that. It was like the silliest argument of all time, and then people were trying to break it up. So I'm glad I was able to bring that to your attention, and I hope you got something out of it. But maybe it was just depressing because it's a sign of where we are right now in the country. But we'll just have to wait and see. Big week next week. We are going to be off for Martin Luther King Day on Monday, but then, of course, we will be back Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and we have the inauguration on Wednesday, so it's going to be a big week, and let's hope that things stay peaceful. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you next week.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.